Let's talk about remembering names on a film set. This is an interesting skill for, well, let's say career development, but also it's important for good teamwork and a lot of other stuff. So, mm, names. We usually tend, sometimes some people don't like their names, and um, I myself, I love my name. So people who love their names, I think they cannot even imagine how it might feel to not love your name. But most people just love their names, and it's, of course, it has a lot to do with ego and like not the unhealthy overdone ego stuff, but just generally ego, like loving ourselves. Um, and it feels really hurtful when someone doesn't remember our name, or when someone straight out says the wrong name to us, or just start calling us on a nickname that we hate. So to generally to to make people happy around us, we have to remember their names. And I remember a moment in my career when a crew member on a film set was calling someone else like, "Hey, dude," for the 100th time, and I was so angry. And that was me, an outsider, being angry at them. So I cannot even imagine what the person who was called "Hey, dude" um, might have felt. So it's it's a bit funny because we usually tend to think about memory in a funny way. We think it's either you have a good memory, or you have a bad memory, or you have a memory for names, or you don't have a memory for names. Now, I will get to that point in a sec. I just want to get to that topic through another story. Once on a film set, I started noticing how the first AD was remembering names in an extreme level, at an extreme level. I was working. I think that was like a second unit situation or something, where then we didn't meet for, I don't know, at least a month or more than a month. And next time we met, right away in the morning, that person just called me on my name, and we didn't talk too much before. We only worked a few days before together. So I felt honored. It felt really good, and it really drew my attention, and I started trying to like see if he does that with everyone. And he was just incredible with names. And so after some time, I gathered my courage and like straight out asked this person, "Okay, I noticed that you are really good with names. Tell me about it." And the person told me that they didn't, they were not born this way. Just started realizing that names are important and started taking notes. And that it was an important part of his job to write down the names, keep them on record, and memorize them as much as possible. And I saw that it was making the whole crew happy. Of course, it was not just the names, it was a whole bunch of leadership and teamwork skills that he was utilizing. But the names was certainly a part of it, and it helped the crew feel honored, and not just bossed around and kicked around, and yeah, basically that. So the around that time, I was diving into the topic of memory as well. And there were a whole bunch of interesting facts that I, unearthed. The information is out there. It's just we usually don't tend to care about it or research it or read about it, read up on it. So, as it turned out, memory is also just a skill. And it's actually a skill that's related to other skills. So, for example, if you are good at, I don't know, remembering phone numbers, that doesn't mean you have a generally good memory and you will remember, I don't know, names of birds. But if you're a mathematician and you deal a lot with numbers, well, maybe you still are not good at remembering numbers, but there is a higher chance when you deal with a certain topic a lot, your memory for that certain topic gets better, because your brain will already remember the patterns, the typical patterns, the typical situations, scenarios, cases, items of that field and topic. So for example, if you are getting proficient in, I don't know, in bird watching, and you already know the names of hundreds of birds, and you learn a new one, it's going to be easier to remember the new one, because you have a system already in your head where you can place that new piece of information. And it's the same with basically everything. It's the same with names. If you start paying attention to names, and if you start writing down names and noticing names and trying to remember names and trying to recall names again and again, you will just get better at remembering names. And of course, it's understandable and sad that usually we try to remember the names of those above us on the ladder, who are our bosses and who can give us better opportunities. And usually we tend to not care about the names who work for us, under us, next to us. So it's just something we have to be careful about, because that's selfishness basically, and it's understandable. Don't get me wrong. I'm not blaming you. All I'm saying is watch out for our nature as human beings to be selfish, easily selfish, and try to act otherwise. Because it's possible. And actually, as with any skill, if you practice being not selfish, it might hurt for the first time, or first few hundred or thousand times, but you will get better at it. Anyway, back to names and memory. So memory is a skill, and also there are a whole bunch of memory techniques that can help remember with anything, but with names as well. We usually, as I said, we usually think about memory as what is that word? I don't like to use that word, so I even forget that word. See, I cannot even remember words, and guess what? At one point in my life, I was proficient in remembering phone numbers after hearing them the first time while being drunk. So, so it's not an overall thing. It's And I'm actually getting to that topic, how I was able to remember this. I was using a memory technique. So yeah, it's a skill. And usually we tend to try to hammer information into our brains. But that's not how our brains work and function. Our brains went through evolution as well. And so it had some functions that were useful for evolutionary reasons, like remembering locations, remembering the vivid things, something that was loud, something that was colorful, something that had to do something with reproduction. I hope I was being gentle there. So yeah, so we tend to remember those kind of things much more easily than trying to just remember 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I mean, that was in order. So maybe like 3, 9, 1, 5, 0, 11, 12. How would you remember that? You probably won't. But if you start connecting information in your head with things that are vivid, lively, moving, memories of smells, and location information in your head, then it gets much easier to remember stuff. This is not a mini course on memory techniques, but look up on the internet memory techniques. Maybe I will do an episode with memory techniques because I just love them. I just want to tell you this final story that showcases why and how memory techniques can be useful when remembering names. And this is, I don't know the original source. It might be even fake. At least a legend. I don't know. It's so there's this story. I've found it in a few books and all over the internet that I think in ancient Greece maybe or Rome, but somewhere around that time and place, there was a huge party with a lot of guests, and the building that was the party was held in collapsed, leaving basically everyone dead. Only a few people survived who were right outside getting fresh air while the building crumbled. And one of them was the person who's this story about, I cannot remember, realized that they can remember basically where everyone who was inside the building, so who is dead now and cannot be identified because, well, they were using huge columns and huge rocks, so everyone was crushed, which is super sad. But for this story, so it was important to identify, like, okay, who died now? And so the person or people outside realized that it was easy to remember who was inside because they remembered where they were sitting. And now, of course, they had to know those people up front. It's not like they learned everyone's name on that day. And no, but certainly remembered who was inside because they remembered who was sitting where. And now this is one of the main memory techniques that are used by actually memory championship contenders. There is a really good book on that called Moonwalking with Einstein. I think it's called that. Probably by Joshua Foer, as far as I remember. Sorry, I'm horrible on trying to remember details because usually I don't care about the details because I can always look them up. So the memory technique is based on storing information connected to locations that you already know in your head. So like placing information inside your own house where you live, inside your head. So like you remember all the nuts and bolts and tiny details of the place where you live in, or at least the big details, and connecting information with those, like the cupboard on the right when you go into the living room, can help you retain that information so much better than if you would be trying to just remember a random information without any context. Yeah. So do a search on the internet for memory techniques. I think I personally enjoy. It's a lot of fun. That's how I was able to. At one point in my life, I didn't really practice the skill, so it went away. I'd have to regain it. So at one point in my life, totally wasted drunk, I was able to remember a phone number after hearing it only once. Yeah. Yeah, so that's on remembering names and memory. It's a skill. It's task related or field related. If you get good at, I don't know, well, names is a bit funny. Like if you're get good at, I don't know, camera technique stuff, then you get better at remembering camera technique stuff. Names is a bit more general. So, but if you practice trying to call everyone on their names, and digging those names up each time you want to use the name, or maybe even just doing practice round, like when you're not around people but trying to remember faces and connecting the names with them. So anyway, if you practice, you will get better. And with memory techniques, you can even override your own natural limitations. Each of us has different wirings in our brains and nervous systems, and those can impose some natural limitations, but not as much as we usually think they would. And they are certainly not talents. Yeah. So you can practice, you can use memory techniques, and of course there is always the good old notebook or piece of paper or the backside of a call sheet or sides. And believe me, it will make everyone much more happier around you. And now, of course, you can use this for selfish reasons to gain career benefits just for you, but you can also use it, and please try if you can or want to use it for the benefit of everyone around you, to make them feel happier, and make them feel more honored and not just bossed around. And yeah. So that's on names. I hope there was something useful in there for you. Let me know. As I usually mention in these episodes, I really want to open discussions about soft skills in film industry. What are soft skills? These are the human-to-human skills and human-to-self skills. And we filmmakers are usually really proficient in human-to-art skills and human-to-machine skills, human-to-tech skills. But we rarely are proficient in human-to-human skills, because we don't really speak about them, talk about them, chat about them. There are not many resources in this industry about them, and there is no overarching organization that would be forcing this information on us, like in a military setting where there is a overarching organization that trains people in teams and leaders in these skills. And in corporations, like in the corporate world, where there are organizations, the corporations themselves train their people. And us in the film industry, we are just freelancers, free for all. And there's just no one, it's just ourselves. And so I'm trying to be one creator who provides that kind of resources and discussions. But I encourage you and everyone to open discussions about these, because I'm just one creator. I cannot change the world alone. It's only all of us together, or not all of us, at least some of us, and better, most of us can. All right, so thank you so much for listening and your time. Have a lovely day, and hopefully see you, hear you, talk to you sometime soon. Bye bye.